My wife cheated with our neighbor and convinced me to sell our family home for $350, $0. But now she's claiming I wrongfully took her out of the will and is threatening to take everything, including the $200, $0 escrow, and sue me for property fraud. It all started with a gut feeling I couldn't shake, but I never thought it would lead me to something like this. One night I found myself sitting in front of my computer, casually scrolling through bank statements and emails, trying to piece together why money was suddenly tight. My wife, Lisa, had always been a little high maintenance, shopping sprees, fancy dinners, you name it. But lately she'd been acting weird, distant even. She'd brush off questions, give me fake smiles, and suddenly she was working late more often than not. Then I noticed the little things. Her phone kept ringing at odd hours, she'd hide it quickly when I walked into the room, and her texts started to look suspicious, short, vague, and often deleted. I decided to check her messages, thinking maybe I was overthinking it. That's when I saw it. An exchange with the neighbor, Mike, that was way too intimate. Flirty, suggestive, and full of plans to meet up later. My stomach dropped. I read the messages twice and I knew I had to confront her. That night I waited until she was in the shower. I grabbed her phone and started scrolling through her recent texts. I saw photos, two naked selfies, cheeky smiles, all exchanged with Mike. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I kept my composure. When she came out of the bathroom, I was already waiting. I asked her who Mike was and her face froze. She tried to deny everything at first, but I had the screenshots. She looked me straight in the eyes and lied through her teeth, saying it was just a harmless flirt, that I was overreacting and that I was paranoid. She told me I was imagining things, that she loved me and that I was lucky to have her. But I knew better. The way she looked at her phone, the way she hesitated, this wasn't just a flirt. It was something real, something she was hiding from me. The shock hit me hard. I'd always thought we had a solid marriage built on trust and shared dreams. But now I was faced with betrayal. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. How could Lisa do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I looked at her, my mind racing, trying to process what was happening. I realized I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. I had to decide what to do next, but I knew that everything was about to change. As I sat there, staring at her, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of betrayal, not just for the affair, but for the way she was trying to manipulate me into believing her lies. I wondered how long this had been going on, how many times she'd lied to my face. And a part of me, the part I didn't want to admit, started to think about revenge. Not just ending the marriage, but making her pay for this. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I'd find a way. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling around the betrayal, the lies, and the fact that she was convincing me to sell our family home for $350, $0, something I'd agreed to because she convinced me it was for our future. Now, I was wondering if that was just part of her plan all along. Was she planning to run away with Mike? Or was she just trying to keep me distracted while she played her game? I decided I'd gather more evidence, see how far her lies went, and figure out what her real intentions were. Because I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. And I definitely wasn't going to let her walk away with everything. Our house, our savings, the $200, $0 in escrow, without a fight. I had to be smart. I had to be careful. But most of all, I had to prepare myself for what was coming next. The next few days were a whirlwind of thoughts and planning. I couldn't believe I had been so blind, so trusting. And now I was faced with the reality that my wife, Lisa, had been cheating on me with Mike, our neighbor, right under my nose. It was like a punch to the stomach every time I thought about how long she'd been lying, how she convinced me to sell our family home, and now she was claiming I had wrongfully taken her out of the will. The more I dug into her lies, the more I realized this wasn't just about an affair. It was about control, manipulation, and greed. I decided I needed to get more concrete evidence. I started by installing a hidden camera in the living room, nothing obvious, just enough to catch her if she brought Mike over again or had another secret meeting. I also kept an eye on her bank accounts, watching her spending habits, and noticed she'd recently made some unusual withdrawals. Cash, mostly almost as if she was preparing for something. I wondered if she was planning to run or if she'd already made arrangements with Mike to leave. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up the act of being the perfect wife. She'd come home, act like everything was fine, but I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes sometimes, especially when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd get defensive when I asked about her whereabouts or her late nights. I even caught her lying about small things like where she'd been or who she'd been texting. Each lie was a dagger. One day, I decided to confront her again. I asked her outright if she was cheating, and she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You think I'd cheat on you? You're just insecure. Mike's just a friend and you're imagining things." The way she said it, the fake smile she forced, something about it made my skin crawl. I knew better. I had seen the messages, seen her secret calls. I wasn't about to let her gaslight me. But then she threw me a curveball. Out of nowhere, she claimed that I'd been harsh lately, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do, and that I was ruining our marriage. She said I was jealous and paranoid, and that she deserved some respect. That was when she started crying, pretending to be the victim, saying she'd never do anything to hurt me. I looked into her eyes and saw the same bitchy, manipulative woman I'd always known. She was good at twisting things to her advantage. Despite her act, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on behind her back. I also started to wonder about the money. The house, the escrow, the $350, $0 we agreed to sell it for. She'd been pushing me to finalize the sale, saying it was for our future, but I had my doubts. I knew she was hiding something. I started to dig into the paperwork from the sale, and that's when I found it. The escrow account with nearly $200, $0 sitting there untouched, waiting to be released. That's when the full scope of her scheme hit me. She wanted the house, the money, everything. And if I didn't play it smart, I might lose it all, especially if she managed to turn things around and accuse me of property fraud or wrongful actions. That's when I realized I had to act fast. I needed a plan, and I needed to make sure I didn't get by her lies again. I reached out to a lawyer just for advice and explained everything. The lawyer warned me about her possible claims of wrongful removal from the will, and that she might try to sue me for property fraud if I didn't handle things carefully. That's when I decided I'd need to be meticulous, document everything, and prepare for a possible legal battle. I also started to think about how to protect the money and the house. If I could show she was manipulating or lying, maybe I'd have a case to keep what's rightfully mine. All this was happening while Lisa kept up her bitchy, entitled attitude. She'd call me paranoid, accuse me of making up stories, and say I was just jealous because I couldn't handle her flirting with Mike. But I could see through her act now. She was a master manipulator, and I knew I had to stay one step ahead. The betrayal cut deep, but I also felt something else: anger. Anger that she'd lied, cheated, and now was trying to turn the tables on me. I promised myself that I'd get to the bottom of this, that I'd fight for what's mine, and that I'd make her regret ever crossing me. The biggest challenge now was to figure out how to expose her lies without giving her a chance to spin her web of deceit. Because if she managed to turn the tables, I might lose everything: the house, the money, my dignity. And I wasn't about to let that happen. Over the next week, I kept my head down and gathered every piece of evidence I could. I didn't trust Lisa to be truthful about anything, so I had to be the one in control. I kept the camera rolling, monitored her phone activity, and kept detailed notes of every suspicious thing she did or said. I also talked to a lawyer, who advised me to freeze the escrow account and start documenting her financial movements. The last thing I wanted was her claiming I took money improperly or that I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful share. One evening, Lisa came home more irritable than usual. She was snapping at me over small things: my choice of dinner, the TV remote, even how I folded the laundry. I knew her mood was shifting, and I suspected she was feeling the pressure. She was starting to realize I wasn't just going to roll over and accept her lies. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling with anger. I had to be careful. If she sensed I was onto her, she might escalate things. That night, I decided to confront her again, but this time more strategically. I brought up the sale of the house, asked her about the escrow, and hinted I knew she was hiding something. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, trying to act innocent. "You're just paranoid," she said, rolling her eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about. I've been nothing but honest with you." But I had the screenshots, the bank statements, and the recordings. I played it cool, pretending I believed her, but I knew she was lying. The next day, I made a move. I contacted the escrow company and put a hold on the $200, $0. I told them I suspected fraud and wanted to verify everything before the funds were released. I also hired a private investigator to look into Lisa's activities and her relationship with Mike. I needed to know exactly how deep this went. If she was planning to run with the money or push for a divorce to get everything, I had to be prepared. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude grew even more bitter. She started throwing around accusations, claiming I was trying to control her, that I was jealous and insecure. She said I was ruining everything and that she'd fight for her rights. Her words were venomous and her tone was bitchy and manipulative. I could see her trying to make herself the victim, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I knew her game. One evening, I caught her sneaking into her closet, hiding something behind her clothes. I quietly opened the door and found a small stack of cash, about $10, $0, hidden in a shoebox. She had been saving money secretly, probably to leave or to buy herself some leverage. I felt a surge of rage. She'd been lying and scheming right in front of me. That was when I decided I needed to take control of the situation more aggressively. I told her I was consulting a lawyer about the property and the sale. I also told her I wanted proof of her claims about the will and the assets. Her face twisted into that bitchy sneer again, but I could see the panic behind her eyes. She knew I was onto her, and I think she realized she was losing her grip on the situation. The worst part: she kept insisting she was the innocent victim, that I was taking her out of the will just because I found out about her affair. She falsely claimed I'd been abusing her emotionally, that I'd been controlling her, and that I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful inheritance. She even threatened to sue me for property fraud and to take everything: our house, the escrow money, even the savings she'd secretly stashed away. I didn't want to let her get away with it. I knew I had to be prepared for what was coming next. I started compiling all my evidence, screenshots, bank statements, recordings, and I reached out to a forensic accountant to verify the legitimacy of the funds. I also began to draft a legal response, just in case she tried to make a move. I was determined to stand my ground, to fight for what I knew was mine. By the end of the week, I felt like I was in a war of attrition. Lisa was no longer the innocent wife I thought I knew. She was cunning, manipulative, and desperate, but I was just as determined. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything we built, especially not after all these years. I had to stay calm, stay focused, and keep my eye on the prize: my house, my money, and my dignity. The truth was starting to come out piece by piece. She thought she could keep lying and scheming, but I was closing in. I knew her secrets now, and I wasn't about to let her use her bitchy, manipulative attitude to get away with it. I was ready for whatever was next, because I knew she wouldn't go quietly, and I was preparing myself for the storm that was about to hit. The tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every day, I felt like I was walking on eggshells, watching Lisa's mood swing from bitchy and dismissive to outright hostile. She knew I was onto her, and I could tell she was trying to keep her composure, but cracks were starting to show. She'd lash out over the tiniest things, calling me paranoid, accusing me of reading too much into everything, and throwing around the word crazy whenever I questioned her about her whereabouts or her secretive behavior. I refused to be manipulated anymore. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. I had the evidence, I had the lawyer's advice, and I knew I was preparing for the legal battle ahead. I also kept an eye on her financial moves, watching her secretly transfer small amounts of money into accounts I couldn't access, trying to build a backup. She was clearly panicked, and her bitchy attitude was just her way of covering her tracks. One afternoon, Lisa snapped at me over something trivial, how I folded the towels or left my shoes in the wrong spot. That was the last straw. I told her I needed to talk to her seriously. I sat her down in the living room and laid it all out. The evidence, the bank freezes, the hidden cash, the recordings. I told her I knew about the affair, about her plans to run, and that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought she'd burst into tears or explode in rage. Instead, she just looked at me with that bitchy smirk. "You're crazy," she said quietly, voice dripping with disdain. "You think I'd do anything like that? You're just jealous because I don't want to be stuck with a boring old man like you. You're losing your mind." She crossed her arms, trying to look defiant, but I could see the flicker of fear behind her eyes. She knew I had her cornered and she hated it. Then she threw a new curveball. "You're trying to ruin me," she hissed. "You're the one who's been cheating and lying all along. You're just pissed I caught you, and now you're trying to blame me for everything." Her voice was venomous, but her words had no power anymore. I knew her game. She was desperate, and her bitchy attitude was just a shield. I told her I was filing for a legal freeze on the escrow account and that I'd be consulting an attorney about the will and property rights. I wanted her to know I wasn't backing down. Her face twisted into a sneer and she spat. "You're going to regret this. You're just a jealous, insecure old man. I'll take everything from you, our house, the money, everything." Her words were loud, but I could see her trembling inside. She was trying to keep her composure, but I knew her well enough now to see her cracks. That evening, I made a move. I contacted the estate lawyer I'd hired, and we drafted a formal notice of dispute over the sale and the escrow funds. I wanted to make sure everything was airtight. I also arranged for a forensic accountant to scrutinize the escrow account and her financial records. If she thought she could hide money or manipulate the system, I was going to expose it. Meanwhile, she kept up her bitchy, manipulative act, trying to turn the situation around on me. She claimed I was trying to ruin her reputation, that I was abusing her emotionally, and that I was trying to steal her inheritance. She even threatened to sue me for property fraud, claiming I had wrongfully removed her from the will just because I'd found out about her affair. She insisted she was entitled to everything, and that I was just a jealous, controlling asshole. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had everything documented. I had her lies, her secret cash stash, the recordings of her and Mike. I knew she'd been playing me, trying to manipulate the situation so she could walk away with the house and the money. I felt the rage building, but I kept it in check. I knew I had to stay calm, to be strategic. That night, I sat alone in the dark, thinking about everything. The betrayal, the lies, the way she had convinced me to sell the house for $350, $0, promising it was for our future. Now I wondered if she'd planned all along to take that money and run. I felt sick, but also determined. I realized I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money. I was fighting for my dignity, my sanity. I promised myself that I'd see this through. No matter how bitchy she got or how much she threatened, I'd stand my ground. I'd protect what's mine, and I'd make sure she paid for what she did. Because at the end of the day, I knew one thing. She'd underestimated me, and that was her biggest mistake. The days that followed were some of the most stressful of my life. Every time I thought about her lying, cheating, trying to manipulate her way out of everything, I felt a mixture of rage and frustration. Lisa's bitchy attitude only intensified. She'd snap at me over the smallest things, accuse me of trying to control her, and claim I was just paranoid. But I knew better now. I had enough evidence, enough proof that I did need her to admit anything. She was caught in her own web of lies. I kept pushing forward with the legal steps. The lawyer I hired was working on filing the appropriate paperwork to freeze the escrow account and to challenge her claims about the will. I also had the forensic accountant reviewing every penny in her hidden cash stash and her recent transactions. I knew she was trying to cover her tracks, but I was determined to find every single dollar she'd been secretly saving or transferring. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior became even more erratic. She started making accusations that I was trying to ruin her life, that I was jealous of her affair, and that I was trying to steal her inheritance. Her words were venomous, her tone bitchy and manipulative, but I could see the desperation behind her eyes. She knew she was losing control, and she hated it. She even started to threaten me outright, saying she'd sue me for property fraud or accuse me of abuse if I didn't back off. One night I caught her sneaking into her closet again. This time, she was hiding something behind her clothes, another small stash of cash. About $15, $0. She'd been trying to squirrel away money, probably to leave or to make a clean break. It made me furious. How many lies had she told? How much more was she hiding? I felt a surge of anger and disgust. She'd been scheming behind my back, trying to manipulate me into giving her everything. I sat her down the next day and laid out everything I'd uncovered. I told her I knew about her secret cash, about her plans to leave, and about her affair with Mike. I warned her that I had all the evidence and that I was prepared to fight her in court if necessary. Her bitchy smirk turned into a scowl and she shot back that I was crazy, that I was making things up, and that I was trying to destroy her. But I didn't flinch. I kept my voice steady and firm. Her attitude only grew more hostile. She accused me of trying to control her, claimed I'd been abusing her emotionally, and said I was trying to steal her inheritance. She insisted she was entitled to everything because she was the rightful owner of the house and the money, and that I was just a jealous, insecure old man. It was classic Lisa, bitchy, manipulative, and full of lies, but I knew her game now. I was ready for her. I also made some moves behind the scenes. I contacted the estate lawyer again and asked about filing a formal challenge to her claims. I wanted to make sure everything was airtight. I also hired a private investigator to follow her around, to see if she was meeting with Mike or anyone else, and to verify her movements. I needed to know if she was planning to run or try to hide more money. The most shocking part came when I finally got the forensic report on her finances. It confirmed what I suspected. She transferred thousands of dollars into accounts I couldn't access, and her hidden cash stash was more substantial than I thought. She'd been planning her escape for weeks, maybe months. That realization made me even more determined. I couldn't let her get away with it. One evening I sat alone in the living room reflecting on everything. The betrayal, the lies, her bitchy attitude, and her relentless scheming. I felt betrayed, angry, but also oddly relieved. I knew the truth now and I had the evidence to back it up. I realized I'd been a fool to trust her so blindly. But now I was ready to fight for what was mine, my house, my money, my dignity. Lisa's threats and manipulations only fueled my resolve. I knew she'd do anything to keep her grip on the house and the escrow funds, but I wasn't going to let her. I had the legal backing, the evidence, and the support I needed. The coming days would be decisive. I was prepared to stand my ground and face whatever she threw at me, because I knew deep down that this was about more than money or property. It was about respect, about my life, and about not letting her walk all over me anymore. And if she thought she could keep lying, scheming, and bitching her way out of this, she had another thing coming. I was done playing nice. It was time to end this game once and for all. The day I finally decided to take her to court arrived faster than I expected. I had all my ducks in a row: evidence, legal counsel, the forensic accountant's report, and I was ready to face whatever she threw my way. Lisa, of course, was still acting like the victim, throwing her bitchy attitude around, claiming I was trying to ruin her life, that I was jealous and paranoid, and that I was just a bitter old man losing his mind. She kept insisting she was entitled to everything: our house, the escrow money, her hidden stash, and that I was trying to steal her inheritance. But I knew better now. I knew her game. I knew she'd been scheming behind my back for months, trying to manipulate her way to get the house and the money. Her lies had been exposed, and I had the proof. The court documents, the bank records, the recordings, they all painted a clear picture of her deception. The hearing was intense. Lisa sat across from me, her bitchy smirk replaced with a look of defiance, but her eyes betrayed her. She knew she was caught. The lawyer I hired laid out everything: the affair, the secret accounts, her attempts to hide cash, her false claims about the will, and her threats to sue me for property fraud. The judge listened carefully, reviewing the evidence I presented, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. In the end, The court ruled in my favor. They confirmed that I had acted within my rights, that Lisa had been dishonest about her intentions, and that she had no legitimate claim to the house or the escrow funds. The judge ordered her to return the money she'd secretly transferred and to cease her attempts to claim ownership of the property via false claims. The court also acknowledged the evidence of her affair and her attempts to manipulate the situation, making it clear she had been trying to lie her way out of accountability. When the ruling was read, Lisa's bitchy attitude melted into pure rage. She screamed, yelled, and threw a tantrum, calling the judge stupid and corrupt. But the court was firm. She was ordered to vacate the house within 30 days, and she lost her claim to the escrow funds. I could finally breathe a little easier, knowing I had protected what was mine. The aftermath was a blur. Lisa moved out, still throwing her bitchy fits and trying to spin her lies to anyone who would listen. But her influence was over. I took back control of my life, my house, and my savings. I sold the house, got the money I deserved, and started rebuilding. The betrayal had cut deep, but it also taught me something valuable. Trust is fragile, and some people will lie, cheat, and manipulate just to get what they want. I've learned to be more cautious, more guarded. I don't take anyone's word at face value anymore, especially not when it comes to money or loyalty. And I realize now that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight for it. Lisa thought she could manipulate her way out of everything, that her bitchy attitude and lies would win her the day. But she underestimated my resolve, my patience, and the strength I had to stand up for myself. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know that I did everything I could to protect myself once I found out the truth. The pain of betrayal will stay with me for a while, but I'm stronger now. I've reclaimed my life, my dignity, and my peace of mind. And if there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's this. Never let someone manipulate you, no matter how convincing their bitchy attitude or lies might be. Stand up for yourself, gather the evidence, and fight for what's right. Because in the end, the truth always comes out, and justice, if you're patient and smart enough, will follow.